Okay, we are here with Tom. So we want to talk about more some question that we want to place about Sideshow, about Court of the Dead, and other stuff in general. So first question is, Tom, is can you explain more about the QC? How is the process of the QC?
Okay, so QC, or quality control, is obviously a critical component of what we do because it's what allows us to connect our work with, our collectors. So this is something we take very seriously. It's also probably one of the biggest challenges that the business faces. Everything that we're doing is hand done. So this creates a wonderful sort of artistry and chaos at the same time. And so in order to address the issue of handwork that has to meet a very specific conclusion, we have teams that are rotating in and out of our overseas factories on every 6 to 7 week kind of a basis. And their focus is generally to bring the attention to detail that they brought in creating the masters or the prototype of the project. So the same person who's done that is generally going over into the factory to observe what's going on there and ensure that we're getting the best result that we can get. Obviously, this is a bit of a challenge. It is a long trip to get there, and it is a very fatiguing endeavor to when you're in China. But it's obviously critical, and it's one that I really want to stress that we take very seriously. And I think that when it's suggested that that's not the case, I can assure you, and my word being what it is that is the thing that we are principally always focused on. The experience of you opening that box that you've waited in some cases maybe 6-9 months or even longer, that's a present that we want you to open and have that sort of childlike satisfaction that is like, yes, I got this. So our goal is to make sure that connects. And when we don't, we do everything that we can possibly achieve and then some to make that right by everyone.
But the process of the QC is the same on the premium format and also the 1/6 scale? Is the same process?
It's a little different. Now, when the premium format lines are almost entirely all hand done. So this is where you have the potential for a greater level of variance. Plastic pieces tend to afford a tighter ability to control the situation. In paint deco, and I think eye placement is maybe one of the things that has often got the greatest degree of variation. Plastic molding allows you to use different paint techniques that have more paint mask guides, whereas our statuary is all just the human eye and getting that repetition perfect. So while we have a team from here that goes over, we have a team that we've put in place in Asia to serve directly the purposes of QC, whether it's plastic or resin. So these are the ways that we are trying to ensure the process. And I think that at the end of the day, I think our record is pretty good. We obviously do have some situations that arise. They can be as varied as simple technical mistakes that were on the line, or even weirder things that we are encountering, which is weather effects in Asia with a lot of humidity, especially in the resin area, tends to create some really quirky, natural sort of situations that can kind of spoil some product. So it was unusual for me to recognize that because I normally associate that kind of thing with more food items. And here we're dealing with resin statues that also have a certain, issue with sort of spoiling in weather. So we've put a lot of efforts into controlling that. We continue to do that, and we continue to look for better ways to ensure that process is as unaffected in the perfection we're seeking as is possible.
Okay, thank you. Another question is that we observed that in terms of price, there was a big increase in price in the statue. Why? There is a reason of production, cost, material. What's happened on the market in the past 6 months, one year?
So, pricing is a big situation. And I think that the thing that has to be appreciated in this is that Sideshow is, our goal is to connect the collector with the pieces that we're trying to put into the market. So us escalating price is not actually our best play. So we recognize that. But when you ask the question, what does influence this? Well, we have global economics, the situation in overseas in China, where most of our manufacturing is done, that escalates in its pricing. And I would say that that's probably the strongest influencer in the fact that prices have escalated over the years to the situation that they're at now. We're looking for strategies that can help balance this, but we are in a situation where we create a high caliber product. It is a very difficult product to manufacture. It does involve a lot of hand work, and all of this involves human labor and cost of living and cost of productions. When you look at this, there's also just the rising cost of materials is an ever-present influencer on product and price. So we're looking to try and determine, are there different strategies we can put in place that can help maybe slow this down or make this as attractive. I think when you look at the programs that we put into place from our marketing efforts that offer collectors points and other ways to create ways for the collector to find manners in which that they can lower the price or find ways to incentivize their own purchasing. So we look for ways to kind of offset pricing that is out of our control, that comes from outside global marketing efforts that we can influence with incentives for being a loyal collector.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And we also saw that for some character, some product, you, produce 2,500 pieces, but for other character, now especially in the last 2 weeks, I saw that Black Cat, you announced that there's just 350. Where is the decision? Why from 2,500 to 350?
I think a lot of times the variance in edition size has a lot to do with the character choice itself. So as the creative director here, I like to create an offering that is a little bit balanced between major characters that are sort of A-plus titans that everyone is really appreciative of, as well as other characters that are maybe secondary in these different properties, but are still interesting to look at, to offer a lot of interesting challenges. So when you want to weigh Superman, which across the world spectrum has an infinitely greater level of fans than, say, a Black Cat, perhaps, that sort of accounts for the fact that we know that fewer people will be as interested in that piece, so we want to kind of create an edition that sets a better collector experience in terms of its exclusivity. So I think when you look at Spider-Man and you say, well, okay, there's 3,000 pieces in that edition as opposed to a 1,500 one, true, that is very different. But 3,000, 4,000, when you compare that across the entire world, is still very, very small. And I think that when we're dealing with Spider-Man, Darth Vader, Wolverine, characters that quite a few people across the world of collectors want to be involved in, we have to kind of create room that allows that collector experience to take place with those major characters, while also offering different levels of exclusivity or uniqueness to some of the secondary or some of the special offerings, not special, but sort of different or maybe more diverse. And that allows us to then create an edition that's a little smaller and tighter and has a different collector experience attached to it.
Okay, thank you. We also saw now the new line Avenger Assemble is 1/5 scale. Mm-hmm. So why you choose this scale?
Now, so the question of 1/5 scale, why did we choose this? You asked earlier about the issue of price escalation. The 5th scale statuary is aimed at that target almost specifically. That, and also the fact that the quarter scale and the more legendary scale pieces that we've been making, we have noticed that we have a lot of loyal collectors. We love all of you, but we also recognize that you share the same challenges we do, which is space in your environments. Now, when you're looking here, I have a lot of space to line up a lot of pieces. In a home or in an art studio or in your TV media room, you might not have as much space. So we have done 5th scale statuary throughout our entire history. There's quite a number of pieces that are in there, but they tend to be smaller little nucleus collections and not ongoing lines. But what we have noticed is that the 5th scale statue at a 15 to 16 inch skyline, as opposed to a premium format at 18 to 24, allows the collector to collect a piece that takes up less space in their display spaces, which allows them to collect more pieces. And at the same time, it also allows us to bring the size and the mass of the pieces and the complexity, which does heavily influence the price of collectibles, and bring that down to a level that is possibly more attractive to collectors than where we've found ourselves with some of our more premium pieces. So this is a strategy that allows us to continue to be creative and continue to make interesting figural expressions, but to do it in a slightly smaller scale. I say smaller, but no less full of presence. We work a lot on making these pieces project a lot of power. And I think fifth scale is still a scale that has a lot of size, allows us to do some interesting things with the composition that we can't really do in the big quarter scale pieces. And I think people will find that we've got a lot of interesting things up our sleeve. Fifth scale is also another scale where we've often done our interpretations of comic artist takes on things. So we've done that with J. Scott Campbell, we'll be doing that with Stanley Lau, and quite a number of others. Back in our history, Adam Hughes did quite a few pieces that we did in fifth scale, as did Mark Brooks. So we're looking at revisiting this area and revitalizing this as a way for collectors who maybe have big collections and need a little space, and also ones that they can collect more of because the financial investment isn't as high.
Okay, thank you. And another question also connected to the sites. We saw that Prime 1 Studio is launching, especially focusing on 1/3 scale. Do you think that this is an interesting market, and how is the collaboration between Sideshow and Prime 1 Studio?
So third scale has been a scale that's sort of floated out there or whatnot, and just to speak on scale as an artist, I feel that scale is a way of organizing collections and organizing our product offering, but at the same time it's a little bit of a pair of handcuffs, because some pieces work better in certain sizes than others, and I think our goal as artists is to make something that's engaging. Sometimes that's at 2 feet, and sometimes that can be a 6-inch piece. So I think the size is really a question of what's best for this kind of character choice, performance. And I think what Prime 1 has done in focusing on third scale is create something that has a huge amount of presence and a nice footprint in a collection, but isn't quite as large as, say, a half-scale figure at 3 feet or a full 1-to-1 figure that might be a more challenging piece to actually fit into your environment. Now, working with Prime 1 is a fantastic experience. They're a tremendous art house. They've got amazing creative output, and they're also this allows us to work with a partner in, say, specifically in DC, which we're very well invested in now, a little bit Marvel, but to do some products that we're not really focusing on. So they've done their line based on the Arkham series of video games. So they've been able to do some expressions in that realm that we're not handling, that allows us to kind of continue to work on things that we're doing, which are principally derived from the graphic novel sources themselves.
Okay, thank you. Another one so that for some product, sometimes now you anticipate, or sometimes there is delay. For example, the diorama Hulk versus Wolverine was anticipated about 6 months. The Dark Phoenix was anticipated 6 months. Why? What's happening on this?
So this really has a lot to do with the issue of the way we manufacture. So again, these are all hand done, and we are constantly on the lookout overseas for new factory resources that allow us to connect our goods with the collector. In the case of Hulk versus Wolverine, we found a new factory partner. We weren't heavily engaged with them, and so there wasn't a lot of activity in the factory that created competition for space in manufacturing. So in that particular case, it allowed us to basically make a product in a probably best case scenario where there weren't any other competitive projects in the factory floor to kind of take up time and space and kind of create that delay. So this product is, and it was also a demonstration that if we can continue to look for new sources and culture these relationships, we can, which is very much in not only our interest, but obviously the collector. Nobody wants to wait. We don't want to make you wait. So we're looking for ways to expedite this. Dark Phoenix, on the other hand, had some things about the production, the way she's balanced. We want to get that perfect. It's also a place where we wanted to get excellent paint results, and that factory is obviously, as you can imagine, very engaged with activity. So with the number of projects that are placed there, it creates a lot of work, and that work is going to take a lot of time to get executed. Also, the Phoenix was a very, very popular piece, so the edition size is not insignificant, and so we can't ship until we have the entire thing finished so that everyone more or less gets their pieces at the same time. If otherwise we would be sending some out and then people would be getting those and they'd be wondering, well, why do I have to wait when someone else got theirs? We'd rather get it all done and satisfy everyone at the same time. But we are very focused on the notion that we believe we can get a faster result from our overseas partners. That would not come at the expense of the quality of what we're doing. It really is more of a logistics planning situation and an issue of how much capacity and energy the factory has in meeting our objectives, which if we can lower that time period, we most certainly are targeting that.
Okay. Now the question is about the exclusive product. So like Sideshow, you have for most of the product there is exclusive, but now also with the increase of price, increase of shipping cost, for a lot of European collectors start to be really hard to buy it because they have to pay the product, pay the shipping, pay the custom. So do you think that maybe there is a solution using the local distributor?
You mean the local distributor in a European territory,
yeah.
for instance? Well, I believe that is in fact the case. So our belief is that any strategic and effective solution that we can set up that connects the collector with the pieces is what we're looking for. Now, clearly, in an international marketplace, all around the world, you can totally imagine the number of unusual variables that have to be dealt with. I do believe, and I believe our business is set up to effectively engage collectors in different European territories specific to their country of origin that effectively deal with the taxes and the VATs that come in from shipping things overseas. We do work with a large number of orchestrated and organized distributors in those territories, as well as offering direct retail opportunities to people who maybe can't connect with that in their country of origin, that they can order from us directly. And we try, again, to create the sort of loyalty points and other incentives that take the edge off of some of those extra costs that folks out of the country have to deal with. And this is the way that we found that we can kind of effectively start to find a way to balance that out for folks. So if you can't find it from a local distributor, which in most European territories should be the case, then you do have a retail opportunity through Sideshow's direct website, and that generally carries the added bonus of building loyalty rewards that you can use to help offset some of those extra prices or extra costs that you're facing when getting the piece to your house.
Okay, thank you. Now, the question is about the fans. What about to be more closer to the fans, asking to the fans what you want to see that will be made by Sideshow, asking which character you want that Sideshow is doing?
Honestly, I think that answer comes from the way people respond to the pieces we put up for sale. So again, when we do a Spider-Man and everyone votes with their wallet, that lets us know that, or validates that we've chosen the character well. I think the fact that we do, I think in the social media, the grand message that comes back to us, is generally easy to determine. So I think while we don't have a face-to-face dialogue, perhaps where I'm asking you what pieces should we be doing, I think we have the facsimile of that by virtue of always previewing our pieces well in advance, so you can see what's coming, you can make your determination. We have a social network that's set up that people are allowed to, place their comments, and those things do create a sort of echo that allows us to, hear that. So when people are saying, hey, can we have more Spider-Man? Can we have more Darth Vader? All right, we take that and we distill that into our process. One thing that creates a bit of a gap in this situation for us is that we are generally working on our products about a year or 15 months ahead of when they will actually release. So we have to plan considerably far in advance. We're also in a marketplace that is heavily reliant on licensed properties. So we have to interact with the studios. And the studios, just like us and just like the collector, they have objectives that they want to see met as well. So this sort of creates a situation where we have to get everything pre-approved in order to do this, and we have to forecast this well in advance. So I think to answer your question, there's no real simple reason for this. We do look for ways to more actively engage the fan base directly, and we're ever adding to our staff to influence or to better influence our social media experience with our collectors. I think if you have the opportunity to go to San Diego Comic-Con, which I recognize not everybody does, but this is an important face-to-face situation for us. We take this very seriously. We plan all year long for shows like this because we know the one thing that we will get out of this for certain is the face-to-face meeting where we can meet with our collectors and we can discuss, again, not out in a forum post or sort of little comments that sometimes are a little sharp. We can have just a conversation between people that appreciate what we're doing, and we come back from these shows with a sense of inspiration. And our inspiration is not just our own interests, but the interests of our collectors. So fundamentally, we're trying to create offerings that are in the interests of what our collectors are, because at the end of the day, as a business, we certainly want to place as many of those in everybody's hands. So the more we effectively diagnose what people are after, or what are the most popular characters that people are interested in, or what features they like best, we take that every time we get that feedback. Every product that's released, that goes into our mindset, and it influences what happens next.
In terms of character, a lot of fans, they are waiting Magneto.
Well,
there is a plan?
Absolutely. That is a character that has not necessarily been overlooked, but when we're trying to deal with the different Titans, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and such, Hulk, we're kind of working our way back to characters like this. Now, personally, characters like Magneto and such that are not necessarily the top of the pantheon, they tend to be more my favorites. And Magneto, his presence in the films, his presence in the X-Men as it is, and also my love for anti-heroes, he's definitely kind of more my favorite. So this is something that we definitely will be visiting. I looked at art for a piece within the last week, even to be more specific. So this is a character that we will be touching, and this will be a part of our premium format offering.
So we are expecting to come in soon a Magneto premium format.
Well, coming soon in Sideshow terms.
Okay.
So yes, but nonetheless.
Okay, another question is about the production, the idea. Is more 3D sculpt or is more clay?
We have, and what I seek with my art directors and our execution staff is a mix of both. I'm an older artist, so I remember the day when there was no digital sculpting. So I have a nostalgia for that, and I think there's also a nostalgia with our collectors as well, and I think you also get a very different kind of a result when the human hand is not working in partnership with a digital device that kind of creates perfect balance and things like that. I think physical sculpture has quirks and interesting elements of them that lend a personality to a piece that is very specific. And I think other characters that are very mechanical or require a lot of detail then benefit greatly from the digital sculpting experience. So as a sort of studio that has a Renaissance kind of mentality, we view digital as another tool for expression, not the only one. And that physical sculpture with clay as a nostalgic part of the art process in creating characters that in many cases are from nostalgic properties is a great marriage. So as artists, it offers us a lot more in our arsenal to express, and you can expect our lines to always be flavored by a very eclectic mixture of both digital and physical sculpture techniques.
Okay, thank you. About the 1/6 scale, you are the official distributor for America, for Europe, for Hot Toys, and you have your 6 scale line. But we saw in Europe are really declining on demand on 1/6 scale, especially, for example, Rogue One was not a big success, and also the other products, Star Wars. So a lot of also connected to the increase of the price. So a lot of collector of 1/6 scale decide to stop to buying or to buy less. What's happening on this market? There is maybe saturation now?
Well, I think, this is a big, loaded question, obviously. But I think the aspect of what you can see is that, I think with everything, collectors have a furious passion for what they're after in that moment. And as that gets satisfied, you've got 1, 2, 3, 10, 12 pieces maybe in your collection. A little bit of fatigue sets in, and you start to think, well, what other interesting things might there be? And I think that, we can look at, there is over the last 6-7 years, a gigantic, evolution of 6-scale technology. And I think, Hot Toys definitely, planted their flag in that and made that their focus. And I think that the results are, speaking themselves. And I think that that helped raise the bar for all of us. And I think that's what I definitely enjoy about our Hot Toys partnership, is that notion that, you know, as artists, we can inspire one another, and we've gotten a lot out of that. I think they've certainly inspired the market. But they have also been very aggressive about making offerings to the collector to satisfy that ravenous appetite. So I think that what you see is not so much is this oversaturation, is it dying off or anything. I think it's sort of a settling, and that, you know, the collectors that have found their collections and feel satisfied with that are ready to move on to a different type of collection, whereas others are still very much rabidly invested in the format and very, you know, their appetites are voracious. And so I think when you're talking about the world, the entire globe of collectors, different places, sure, they may have had access to all of these 6-scale characters longer. So maybe in certain places, you can see that the interest is starting to become less than what it once was. Whereas in other places, it's just starting to rise. So I think that when you see things, or that maybe you're concerned about where is this going, I almost would say, I don't know that that matters. It's a collector art. So if you're still giving opportunities to collect, I think the collectors that are invested in it are satisfied. Those that are looking for something else, I think that's the beauty of what Sideshow offers. Our 3D art is diverse. You can get 6-scale figures, you can get 5th scale, quarter scale, 3rd scale, half scale, 1-to-1. I think we offer a panoply of ways to express your interest in characters and fill your collections with different things. And in fact, I am not the kind of collector that stays focused on a particular size, style, or otherwise. To me, it's the character, it's the expression. Did this capture my imagination? Sure. And I think, you know, if you get a chance to look around my office, you'll see that I have things in every scale imaginable and every format that we've ever done. And I like a collection that is not sort of universal, and I don't mean to say that as a critique of those who do. I think we collect because of, you know, what's our heart driving us to, and I think that should always be encouraged. So in this particular case, I think those that still have the passion for 6-scale are going to continue to be satisfied. Those that are looking for other things, I would say, you know, take a look at what else we're offering, because I feel like we have probably the best case to say we probably have something for everyone, and if we don't, we're working on it.
Okay. Let's go about also coming back to Statue, and we saw in the past 4 years a lot of new company join this market. So it's Iron Studios, XM Studios, Prime One. Do you think that all this offer that there is on the market, they create a really saturation, so the collectors start to say, what I have to buy? Because my space is a problem, my wallet is a problem, so there is too much offer, but how all this company can survive offering all these products?
Well, I think, you know, it's a balancing act, right? So I think the issue of I think you have to start with how popular, you know, the pop culture films that have been coming out in the last 4 or 5 years have become, and how that has created a bigger global marketplace. If we went back in time 10 years ago, before the Avengers films, before any of this Marvel renaissance in cinema, before we had new Star Wars films, you would look that the collector landscape was not, it was definitely impassioned, but it didn't have any of these vehicles that were in the current time, that were new, that were coming out. We hadn't seen this since the Lord of the Rings films, when the films were new. Most of what Sideshow's doing, and most of what the figure collector audience is reacting to, is nostalgia. So Star Wars was a nostalgia property. DC to a certain degree, Marvel to a certain degree. Suddenly, boom, they do these films, it explodes. And this creates opportunity. And so I think that what we're seeing is that, yes, there are you know, competitive elements in the marketplace now that weren't before. Would I like that to not be the case? Absolutely. But at the same time, I think it brings a health and a perspective to the marketplace. So while you can get overwhelmed with the amount of products and the sort of decision of, well, where do I want to make my investment? I think we answer that by, you know, making every effort to offer the best customer service possible, the best rewards for loyally supporting our product, and we continue to put our efforts into R&Ding, not just QC efforts, but also the art itself, to maintain our competitive edge and our place in this marketplace, which still is the biggest, the strongest, and we are the best. That there's still more for us to do, and it invigorates us, puts a little fire in our hearts, and makes us work even harder to satisfy our collectors.
Okay. In terms of Sideshow, you do the San Diego Comic Con, you do the New York Comic Con. Any plan to satisfy the European collector to do something in Europe?
Well, I'll tell you what, my wife lived in Italy for 2 years, so she's a tremendous fan of us doing a show in Europe, as am I. So the thing I think this is a lovely idea. I think when I spoke earlier about Comic-Con and how it gives us the opportunity to physically connect with the collector, which is an experience that cannot be replicated in any other way. Social media gives us just a sense of it. But again, you and I are sitting here right now. I see when your head nods, I see when your head shakes, where you're satisfied and where you're not as satisfied. And I think that that's an experience that is very important to us. And obviously, we've been working with the European distributors and the collectors for almost our entire lifespan. And they're as big a part of our family as anything could possibly be. The issue and the challenge with shows for us is while we seem to be a big company, we're not huge. And so in order to do the different shows, the logistics of planning that and getting everyone to those locations is very challenging. So we do recognize the advantages. We do look to use the distributors that are in those territories to go to the different shows and represent on our behalf as partners that serve as ambassadors to their own collector base. And as it stands, that's the strategy we've elected to pursue. But in the world of never say never, a show in the European continent would be an amazing experience, not just for the collectors, but for us as well. So I look forward to the day when we have the resources and the ability to kind of maybe consider that and make that a reality.
Okay, thank you. So now, last question is about Court of the Dead. So, your line, what do you create? Can you tell us how is the direction of the market on this line?
Well, Court of the Dead has been, a fantastic experience. Obviously, when we're working, the company is built on licensed property, but we have always, been from day one focused on the notion of doing original things. We're an art studio, so our sense of expression is one in which that, there's two sides of this that have to be satisfied. One is the replication of nostalgic properties. Whether we're doing Star Wars or Darth Vader, we're focused on representing that. When it comes to the original stuff, though, this allows us to express things that are purely from our imagination. There's nothing in our way from just, expressing what we want to do. So for me, especially an artist that has had this bottled up in me for some time, this has been a fantastic experience. And I am so pleased and proud of the acceptance and the sort of capturing of the imagination that this quirky anti-hero underworld versus the celestial slave masters has kind of created with folks. It's been a dynamic experience. It's been one that's been embraced by the international community. To be quite honest, Court of the Dead is as popular outside the U.S. as it is inside, and I think that the themes that are in it, sort of the parable of power and to sort of fight against things that are sort of oppressing you, is a universal kind of a theme. And we've seen great success with the pieces we put into the marketplace. So much so that at this point, half the line is already sold out, and we're looking at continuing to make new expressions. So I think some people are concerned, are you going to just, we've announced recently we're going to do new versions of the Queen, Galavarb, and Kier. These are not at the expense of new expressions. So there are plenty of new things. In fact, there is so much going on for Court right now, it's kind of crazy. Premium formats, we're talking about some fifth scale things now to kind of bring some price points down. We just showed the Aglavale bust in a legendary format that also allowed us to create a piece that's big, dynamic, and has a lot of physical presence, but is a little simpler in its scope and allowed us to create a more attractive financial price point for this. In addition, we're doing a lot more publishing in 2017. We're looking in the world of physical gaming, which has always been a passion of mine. So there's a lot of surprises and a lot of payoffs coming for this. And I really look forward to not just continuing to engage the collectors' physical, appreciation for the dynamic models that we're putting out, but also the chance to sort of tell the story that is behind all these crazy characters and pay this off with both novellas, comics, and novels that support the storyline that's behind all of this.
On the Court of the Dead, which one is your favorite character?
I think my favorite character is, I think the All-Taker Death is kind of a personal interest for myself, but my favorite character is the Reaper General Demethiel, who is sort of the noble, moral compass of the underworld. It's sort of an Obi-Wan Kenobi of the underworld, if you will. He's sort of the knight that is like trying to show the rest of the underworld that they can pursue their quest to free not just the mortal realm but the underworld from the slavery of the Celestials, and do it in a manner that is noble and not just a destructive effort. And so this character to me represents that kind of sense of the venerable kind of statesman soldier that sort of represents both the challenge as well as the sense of maintaining a sort of political peace within their own universe. So anti-heroes to me are the most interesting, where they may strive for goodness, but they have demons, they have real issues, and to me that feels a lot more like my life than maybe looking at Superman's, where I see, well, that's an ideal, but I don't see the challenges that I have to face. He seems to be immune to. And so a character like Demethiel, again, looks horrific, but in his heart is a noble knight of purpose. And I think that is what, those are the type of characters that captivate me.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tom, and thanks for your time, and it was a pleasure to have this interview with you.
Oh, you're most welcome, and thank you to the collectors that continue to support us, and you are why we do this. We love to satisfy you, because then we are all equally satisfied, and we look forward to continuing to do that for many years to come.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Oh, you're most welcome.